Hi, today we are doing lesson 7.1b, slope and correlation. And this lesson starts on page 11, so turn there now. We're working on telling if a relationship is proportional from a graph, or in many ways, finding the slopes or rate of a proportional relationship in any form, and representing proportions in multiple ways. So we're going to start with this problem. We have two lines here, and we find their whether that slope is positive or negative, find their y-intercepts, and whether or not that makes them proportional. So I'm going to start with the slope. So the line, we talked about a little bit in yesterday's lesson. So the slope of the line is rise over run. So rise over run. So you can think you have to rise up before you can run a race. You can't just lay on the ground and run a race. You got to rise up. Or you can think of this part as being like a balloon. It's rising into the air and it's being held by someone who's running. So the balloon is up in the air and the runner is down below. So I'm going to start with letter A, graph line A, and I'm going to pick the 2 points that are on that line. So that one and that one. If I want to go from this point to that point, am I rising up or am I falling down? Falling down is considered rising because it's going in the same direction. Like up, down is one thing, left, right is one thing. So it's still going in the y direction. So we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Down 10, we could show with negative 10. And then we run 1, 2, 3, 4. Positive 4 to the right. So our slope for letter A is negative 10 over 4. And you can simplify that, but you don't have to. You could do negative 5 halves. We usually do not change it into a number with a decimal. We usually use it as a fraction because it means the fraction of rise over run. Okay, and now let's do B. So letter B, I can pick any 2 dots. I'm going to pick this dot. Can't really see that one. I'm going to pick this dot and this dot. And I could have picked this one in the middle, but I already have a line over it. I didn't want to get confused. So I'm going to do rise over run. So I'm starting here and I'm going to there, left to right. And so I'm rising up 1, 2, 3, 4, straight up. So I rose 4. And I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to the right. So I rose 4 and I'm running 6. And again, I can simplify this to 2/3, but I don't have to. But if I would have picked that center point, this one, I would have risen 2 and run 3, so it would be the same. Okay, so positive or negative? Well, we can look at the slope itself for that. The slope of this one is a negative divided by a positive, which is a negative. And this one is a positive divided by a positive, which is a positive. You can also look at the line. If the line is going uphill when you go left to right, it's positive. If it's going downhill left to right, it's negative. All right, the second part of this lesson is the y-intercept. So if I have the y-intercept, it is where the line crosses the y-axis. So here's my y-axis. So letter A crosses right here, right at this spot right there. So that dot from my origin is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 above the origin or 10 above 0, 0. So the y-intercept is at 10. For letter B, it's 2 spots above 0 or at 0, 2. So the y-intercept is 2. So it is literally just the place that that line crosses the y-axis. Wherever that intersection is, that's the intercept. Okay, is it proportional? Well, in order to be a proportional relationship, 2 things have to be true. Number 1, it has to be a straight line graph. Well, both of these are straight line graphs. Number 2, it has to touch at 0, 0. Well, 0, 0 is right here. Are either of those lines touching this spot right here? Nope, neither one. So both of these would not be proportional. Okay, next, slope, positive, negative, y-intercept are proportional. So here I go. Letter C, I got this dot and this dot. Slope, rise over run. I'm going to rise by falling 2. It's negative 2. I think of a hot air balloon. I can either rise up in it or I can come down in it. And then I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is -2 over 4. If you did not draw this part on your paper, you better make sure you put those into your notes, because that's more important to me that you do the rise over run over here than it is even that you write it here. Here's good. This is more important. All right, how about for letter D? I got a dot right there and I got a dot right there. So I'm rising up 1, 2, 3, 4 and running over 1. So I rose 4, I ran 1. My slope is 4 over 1, which is the same as 4. This one I could simplify down to -1/2. So is my slope positive or negative? Well, letter C is going downhill left to right, and it's got a negative here, so that's 2 hints that it's negative. Letter D is going uphill left to right, and it's a positive slope. That's the hint it's positive. Okay, Y-intercept, where does it cross the Y-axis? So letter C is down there. Start at the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. So the Y-intercept is at -6. D crosses right here at the origin. That's 0. Y-intercept is 0. So is it proportional? Well, C isn't. It's a straight line, but it doesn't touch at 0, 0. So that one's no. But D is our first proportional graph on this assignment, this lesson, because it's a straight line and it touches at 0, 0. So that's a great big yes. All right, if you wanted to right now, you could pause the video, go to the homework, and on the homework, the first part says find the slope, is it positive or negative? Find the y-intercept, is it proportional? You could do the question number 1 right there right now. All right, next section. On this next part, we're going to graph 4 lines. Graph each line. We're going to graph line E, line F, line G, and line H. We're going to start by placing a dot at the y-intercept. That is the very first step. You have to start at the y-intercept. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2, it's supposed to be a 1. Step 2 is to use the slope and the rise over the run to make the graph. So step 1, y-intercept. Step 2, use the slope. So step 1, graph E. Y-intercept is 10. So I'm going to go on the y-axis until I get to 10. And I'm going to put a dot there. I need a bigger dot. Let's use this size dot. There we go. Bigger yet. There we go. That's a nice dot. Okay. And the second step is we're going to use the slope is -5 over 2. So -5 tells me to go down 5, and over 2 means to go to the right 2. Now we're always going to go to the right. The top number tells us up or down. The bottom number always tells us to the right. Always, always, always. So going down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the right 2. 1, 2, put a dot. I want my nice big red dots. Okay, and again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right 2. 1, 2, put a dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. 1, 2, put a dot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. 1, 2, put a dot. And you will keep doing that until you run out of graph. Okay, and now you're still not done. Now we're just going to continue that line in the opposite direction. And so we're going to do the opposite thing. We're going to go up 5 and to the left 2, up 5 and to the left 2 until we run out of graph. So we want our line to go all the way from one edge of the graph paper all the way through the other edge of the graph paper. Then make sure you put arrows on the end. to show the line keeps going. We only stopped because we ran out of graph paper. And that one was letter E, graph. All right, now that I've graphed it, I'm going to go down and answer these two questions, or answer this question. Is it proportional? Is it a straight line? Yes. Does it hit 0, 0? Nope, not proportional. Okay, let's do another one. So, y-intercept is negative 17, negative 17. So start at 0, 0, go down to negative 17, put a dot. Slope is 3 over 1, so I'm going to rise 3. And I'm going to run 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. Dot. 1, 2, 3, 1. Dot. 1, 2, 3, 1. Dot. And keep going until you run out of graph paper. I'm going to pretend I've ran out of graph paper. Then I can go back the other way and just continue that line on, one more dot that direction. Okay, and connect your dots. And if you did it correctly, it should be a straight line because it has the same slope for the whole graph. If you don't have a straight line, by the way, there's a problem. And put our arrows on the end. And label our graph. And this one was graph F. Okay, graph G. Start with a new color here. Graph G. Graph G has a y-intercept of, oh, I forgot to do proportional or not. So this graph right here, it was a straight line, but it did not hit 0, 0, so it was a no. Okay, graph G, y-intercept of 16, all the way up here. Put your dot. Label it G, so you don't forget like I keep doing. Slope is negative 5, and it doesn't have an over. So if there's just negative 5, how do we write that as a fraction? What is it? Negative 5 over what? The thing we can put on the bottom of a whole number or a integer to make it a fraction is 1. So it's telling us to go down 5 and to the right 1. Don't forget that 1 because otherwise you just have a straight up and down line and that's not what we're going for. So down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right 1. Down 5 to the right 1. Down 5 to the right 1. Now you can kind of see what I'm doing here is I'm using those numbers that are on here. I started at 6, so then I went 11, 16, 1. Now I am negative 4, but I'm always 1 above the 5, 10, 15. I don't know if that helps you or not, but helps me. There we go. And so now I have a steeper line going downhill. Remember, downhill graphs are called negative slope graphs. They're decreasing, they're going downhill. And we need to put our arrows on the end. And we already labeled it G, so we're good there. So just to kind of verify, letter E graph and letter G graph are both going downhill. They're both negative. They both have a negative slope. Graph F is positive slope. It's going uphill. Graph H is also a positive slope. It's going to go uphill. Now let's finish off this one. Is it proportional? Is it straight? Yes. Does it touch 0, 0? Not even close. So nope, still not proportional. All right, graph H. The slope is 4. The y-intercept is 0. So I got a y-intercept of 0 finally. Okay, and the slope is 4. Well, what does 4 mean? It means 4 over 1. Rise 4, run 1. Rise 4, run 1. Rise 4, run 1. Rise 4, run 1. By the way, if you are one of those people like me who has trouble drawing a straight line, using the slope to help you really does help because it gives you lots more dots to connect with a straight line. Also, when you're doing this, it's a really good idea if you are not good at drawing straight lines that you use a straight edge of something. And by that, I mean that you take like the edge of a book or the edge of, if you have a rectangular phone, the edge of your phone, and you use that to connect the dots so that your graph is nice and neat. If you have a graph that doesn't have straight lines, it's really kind of hard to read what that graph is trying to tell you. I know we're not really reading the graph right now, we're just creating it, but a lot of times the reason that you create a graph is to be able to read it and make some ideas about it. All right, so now let me put my arrows on the end and label it. So this one was graph H. That looks better. Okay, and arrow on the end. And it is going up in the uphill, the positive direction, because it has a positive slope. The y-intercept is 0. Is it proportional? Is it a straight line? Yeah. So yes. Okay. Does it hit 0, 0? Yes, finally we have one that hits at 0, 0. Woo, woo, woo. It is proportional. All right, if you wanted to right now, you could pause. You could go down and do the second half of the first page because you're graphing two lines. Find the y-intercept, put the dot, use the slope to make the line. Or we can keep going on notes. Here we go. Now we're using a table. When we have a table, we need to find the slope and the y-intercept and decide if each table is showing a positive or negative change and if it's proportional. So we're going to do y-intercept first. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. That's always going to happen where the input, or in the x we call it, equals 0. Wherever x equals 0, the output, which is the y part, is the y-intercept. So sometimes I do this. Wherever x is 0, that's the y-intercept. So the y-intercept here is 0. Is it proportional? I can say yes without doing anything else because it's, well, I shouldn't say that. Let me erase that. I don't know if it's a straight line yet. I know it goes through 0, 0, but I don't know if it's a straight line. So I got to look to see if there is, if it's linear. So I'm going to look here. Is this changing by the same amount? It is. It's changing by 1. Now notice I made my last little bump go all the way down here because the x, remember x goes across? So that's the run part of my rise over run. So I need that to be on the bottom. Now I'm going to do the rise part of the rise over run. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. That's going by 3s. So my rise, it's rising up by 3. Every runs over by 1. So my slope is 3. So now, do I know if it's proportional? I do, because it's at a steady rate all across. And if it's at a steady rate, then it is a straight line graph. So yes, it's proportional. Is the correlation positive or negative? Correlation, slope. Is the slope positive or negative? It's positive. That just means that the graph is going uphill left to right. I don't think that's right. Nope, it's this one. Uphill, left to right, uphill. Everything's in a mirror when I'm doing this. All right, so number 4. Okay, so start with y-intercept. Start with y-intercept. Wherever x is 0, y is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 10. Okay, what is the slope? How much are these changing by? They're changing by 1. How much are these changing by? Those are changing by -2, -2, -2, -2, so -2. So my slope is -2 over 1, which simplifies to -2. What's the correlation? The slope is negative. The correlation is negative. Is it proportional? Nope, because it doesn't go through 0, 0. So start with y-intercept. Wherever x is 0, that's the y-intercept. Slope. How much is this changing by? Well, this time it's changing by 2's every time. How much is this changing by? That one's changing by 1's. So we have a slope of 1/2. We go up 1 every time we go over 2, remember? Input is across, so that's the run. Output is the y, so that's the rise. Is it proportional? Well, it's going up at a steady rate every time, so, and it goes through 0, 0, so that's a yes. And what's the correlation? Positive slope, positive correlation. Last one of these guys. Oh, I guess there's 2. I'm going to skip one. And I'll do 6. Okay. Ooh, 6 is a problem. What can't we find right now? What's missing? We don't have a y-intercept x equals 0 part. We have to create one. Now I'm going to look across here and I see change by 1, change by 2, change by 3, change by 1, change by 1. There's no seem to be rhyme or reason in there. So we have to add in some data. Have a good trip. So I'm going to put in a 5 right here. Miss Jacobs is going to Florida today or tomorrow morning. Putting in the missing numbers in here so that we can actually figure out what the pattern is. And I'm going to add in some more missing numbers. I'm going to put the 2, and I'm going to put the 1, and I'm going to put the 0. So now let's fill this in. These are going by 1's now. So 22, 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0. So I went down by 2's all the way across to the left. So now I can find my y-intercept. Whatever y is, that's the y, or x is 0, that's the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 0. All right, let's look for the slope. I don't have to do all of them. They're going by 1's. How much is this changing by? It's changing by 1's. How much is this changing by? It's changing by 2's going this direction. So my slope is 2 over 1, which is the same as 2. It's a positive number, so a positive correlation. And we have a steady rate, and we have a 0, 0. And so, yes, it's proportional. All right, on number 7, I'm not going to do the whole thing here, but you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to throw in a 1 and a 0 and a 4 and a 6, 7, 8. And then you could just kind of ignore that one if you don't like that one. All right. Just so you can check yourself. You can pause if you want to first and figure it out. But the slope of this one is 5. The y-intercept is -1, I believe. It is not proportional, and it is a positive slope. Let me just verify that y-intercept in my head. -5 to 9, -5 to 4, -5 to -1. Yep. All right. So use, here you could pause, go to the homework, and do numbers 3, 4, and 5 on the second page. Okay, back over here. Use the slope and y-intercept to complete the table. Decide if each table is showing positive or negative change and if it's proportional. So start with the y-intercept. Do you notice I've said that like 20 times? I feel like I've said it more than that, but start with the y-intercept. Wherever the input is 0, that's the y-intercept. So that's 3. That's your starting point. The slope is how much it's changing by. So I've got a slope of 5. I have to rewrite that 5 over 1. That means the tops are going by 1s, which they are, and the bottoms have to be going by 5s. So 3 plus 5 is 8, plus 5 is 13, plus 5 is 18, plus 5 is 23, plus 5 is 28. Notice when you add 5s that the 1's digit just keeps going back and forth. Is it proportional? Nope, doesn't go through 0, 0. Is it positive or negative correlation? Slope is positive. It's increasing. Positive. All right, next one. Start with the y-intercept. Wherever x is 0, that's the y-intercept. 0. The slope is -3, which means -3 over 1. So all the tops are changing by 1s, which they are, so that's convenient. And all the bottoms are changing by -3s, going down by 3 each time. So if we're at 0 and we go down 3, we're at -3. Think about getting colder. So -3, and you go down 3, now you're at -6, and then you're at -9, and then you're at -12, and then you're almost to the temperature we're living at right now, -15. Is it proportional? It goes through 0, 0. It goes at a steady rate. It's a downhill steady rate, but it's still steady. So yes, it's proportional. Is it positive or negative? It's going downhill. It's negative slope. Okay. Number 10. Do you want to push pause, try this one, and come back? All right. Let's see if you're back. Start with y-intercept. Wherever 0 is on the x, as 0 is the y-intercept is the y. So we go right there. The slope is 1 over 2. That means the tops are changing by 2, which they are. That's convenient. And the bottoms have to be changing by 1s. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Proportional, 0, 0, steady rate. Yep. Correlation, positive slope. Numbers going up, that's positive. 11. Start with the y-intercept, but that has to be where the data starts at 0, where the input is 0. So I need to back up here. I got to put in a 2 and a 1 and a 0. So now wherever x is 0, the y-intercept, it's 20. And the slope is -2 or -2 over 1. So the tops have to be going by 1. So I need to throw a 5 in here and a 7 and an 8 in here. And now all these are going by 1s. And, oops, and the outputs, the y parts need to be going by -2s. So 20 minus 2 is 18. Minus 2 is 16. Minus 2 is 14. Minus 2 is 12. Minus 2 is 10. Minus 2 is 8. 6, 4, 2, 0, and -2. Okay, those were changing by -2s every time. So is it proportional? Not 0, 0. Nope, didn't even pass the first test. Is it positive or negative correlation? It's a negative slope, so it's a negative correlation. Okay, and last one. Y-intercept is 0, so I got to get myself back to 0. 1, 0. Y-intercept is 0. 0, 0. Slope is -10, so -10 over 1. So those have to be going by 1s, and these have to be going by -10s. So 0, -10, -20, negative 30. Now, I could put in the 4 here and go negative 40, or I could notice that each time I had 1, negative 10, 2, negative 20, 3, negative 30, 5, negative 50. It's the number times negative 10. 9, negative 90, 10, negative 100, 20, negative 200. So sometimes you can go to up-down pattern instead of the across pattern. Is it proportional? Does it go 0, 0? Yes. Is there a steady rate? Yes. Not here, but if I put in all those between numbers, if I put in 4, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, it would be a steady rate. I would be able to tell. And it is a negative slope, so it's a negative correlation. So what was the most important part of what we learned today? We learned slope, and we learned y-intercept. And just as an FYI, you're going to be hearing the word slope and y-intercept for probably the rest of your math career. This is a really big concept in math. It's like the main thing you're going to talk about most of next year in algebra. Everything is going to build off of slope and y-intercept. And then you just keep going back to it and back to it and back to it in every math as you keep going. So, welcome to your future. What is something you need some more time to understand? You choose and write it right there. All right, so if you were pausing as you went along, you already have number 1 and number 2 done, and you already have number 3, 4, and 5 done, so all you have left is 6 and 7. If you weren't pausing, then good luck on your homework. Have a great day. Bye!